Hi, welcome. My name is SherriMcKeon, and my book idea today is the PTSD Workbook by Mary Beth Williams, PhD, Soili Poijula. Soili Poijula. Sorry, well, PhD. Simple, effective techniques for overcoming traumatic stress symptoms. This book, I first saw it at the VA Medical Center, and I saw it being given to the veterans from the VA Medical Center in Palm Beach, and I was very, very intrigued, and I got myself a copy of it, and I went through the whole workbook, and I found it to be extremely helpful in recognizing what is PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, which is trauma is something bad has happened to you. Post-traumatic means after the stress, there's more stress and it becomes a disorder. So your post-trauma becomes a stress disorder where you're stressing all the time. And this book helps you to understand what is a normal grieving process and what is symptoms that are severe, symptoms that are possibly debilitating, symptoms that are maybe just taking away from your life, and breaks down the symptoms and breaks down different relevant possible reactions to that stress that you have reoccurring to you. When we have a stressful situation, we tend to, until we resolve it, we relive it and relive it and relive it. And this book walks you through different ways of resolving things. Some things are not resolvable. Some things are more resolvable than you might think. Some things resolve themselves a lot better than you might think. So this book goes into the very beginning as a safety assessment. Are you safe? Are you safe? Are you emotionally safe? Are you being stressed out emotionally by anyone or anything or any place? These factors need to be reduced in your life as soon as possible. And your safety is number one. Are you safe? Not just physically safe from domestic violence or, sexual harassment at work or anything like that. Those are safety concerns also that need to be, anyone who's had traumatic stress needs to not be in a stressful environment. That is a trigger that brings it up over and over and over. And then that causes even more stress and trauma that needs even more de-intensifying. So the very beginning of the book is, are you safe? Are you safe where you live? Are you safe with your mind and your beliefs and expressing yourself? And on a day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis, do you live in an oppressive environment from someone or something? And those factors need to be de-intensified. That's number one to getting your emotional stability back. And especially with post-traumatic disorder, things tend to get dysregulated and highs and lows and not able to really get to a more simpler basic level, things get very complex and complicated and confusing, basically. And after this "Are you safe?" question, creating a safe place, keeping your safe space safe is another topic on page 31. Extremely important for someone with post-traumatic stress disorder. My safety net. Then on page 45, now that's the book. We're talking, a quarter of the way into the book. Do you have PTSD? On page 45. That's how important safety is to someone with PTSD. And this could be from your childhood. There was alcoholism and stuff in my caregivers, and this caused a lot of trauma for me. And that's from my childhood, from a long time ago. And this book has helped me to identify and understand where I'm at in the process of dealing with that. And it's important to recognize that any traumatic situation, we naturally have a process for dealing with trauma, but we don't always go in a logical amount of time through that. It might take 10 years to get over a trauma, or it might take 10 months, depending on how fast we go through those stages. But once we understand the stages and we can see where we're at, it's easier to bite off a little more of the apple and pursue the next stage and the next stage, and then help the healing process in that way. So, do you have PTSD? Exercise. My symptoms. Wonderful list of symptoms. I'm not going to get into them in this video because this video will be way too long. Then we get into chapter 4, page 49, right after that. Helping yourself when you re-experience trauma. And this is basically the crux of PTSD, is you're re-experiencing the trauma and or re-experiencing the feeling you felt from the trauma, during the trauma, about the trauma. You're reliving those feelings. I had a situation where I really had a job I really, really loved, and I got fired. I went and bought the wrong thing for the boss. I was sent to buy something. I bought the wrong thing. I came back with the wrong thing, and I was terminated for that. And, I don't know. It was a long time ago. I was like 21 years old. I was a pretty young person at the time. And I relived that firing over and over and over because I had a lot of other things going on in my life, and that I needed that job. I loved that job. I really wanted that job, and I really liked my boss, and I was pretty devastated. It was the first time I'd ever been terminated, and I felt it was a pretty petty termination too. At the time, I didn't know about fending for myself and standing up for my rights and all this other stuff. I just walked out, and that was the end of it. Got my check and went. And I relived that trauma of that firing over and over and over. And for me, it took like 5 years for me to really come to terms with the situation with the boss. Actually was going bankrupt. She was selling everything she owned. Her house was for sale. She had a lot of things going on that I did not know about. And I looked at the whole situation as a lot different. It's not like my personal failing made me fail and made me get fired, but she was going to let me go because she was holding up the business. And I didn't realize that till 5 years later when I saw her daughter at a horse show. and her daughter was telling me all the things that had gone on after I had left the company. And I gained a completely new perspective, and I never once had relived that horrible day again. I came to terms with it, but it took 5 years for me to get over that one day. I was very devastated by that. And if I would have known a few things about grief and about journaling, about things, I eventually learned at pretty much around the age of 30, I started journaling. I journaled a lot when I was a little, I won't say a little kid, about like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You know, a young teen, I journaled a lot. And then I really just got way too lazy till I was about 30, and I journaled ever since. So I learned things that help unravel that. What is it, the crux of that hurt me so bad that I can't understand it, and the pain keeps coming back. So my journey through that whole little scenario, you know, was a 5-year journey. And after going through this book and dealing with a few other situations, I have found that following the steps in this book really speeds up the process of accepting these traumas and accepting the unfairness of outcomes and the unfairness of being a victim. You know, yeah, I survived the sinking ship, but I'm still a victim of a sinking ship. Yeah, you know, I find too, surviving a bad incident, people want to congratulate you like a survivor of a shipwreck. You know, you survived the shipwreck. But you went through a storm and a shipwreck. You know, there's a lot of trauma there that even though you survived, it's still not like over yet. It's like processing what just happened. So I like using that scenario. And there's flashbacks. They talk about what to do about those flashbacks. Nightmares, dreams, traumas, triggers. Then there's exercises on doing charts, like a flower diagram of you and things in your life, people in your life, thoughts in your life, and how to, again, put it on paper, which is really a very helpful aspect of recovering from PTSD, is getting it on paper, even in a like little arrow diagram thing, like me sad with an arrow to sad. It helps you to really see the map of your emotions, of where you're at on the map. Me happy is way over here with an arrow. Me sad way over here. Am I on the map over here, or am I on the map over there? Very helpful to sit with that picture in front of you that you just drew in little stick figures. So then coming into page 88, we have anger and rage and how normal that is. It is normal, and it is not something to be ashamed of, and it is something that can be helped. And they have self-harm on page 98. They start talking about self-harm and the whole situations with that. Chapter 7, page 105, dealing with associated symptoms, which are guilt, survivor guilt, shame, loss. There are more chapters about difficulty regulating emotions, more chapters back here. Let's see. How trauma impacts your body. This is the somatic response, how trauma impacts the way you view yourself. dealing with your perpetrators. There's a whole chapter on that. And complex PTSD questionnaire for trauma survivors. So the term PTSD has gotten a lot of attention, especially with the veterans, the military veterans having PTSD and getting a lot of getting that highlighted in the public. But often it's childhood trauma, and when you don't recover from it, it becomes complex PTSD. So they're basically versions of themselves. PTSD and complex PTSD, you really have one with the other. And complex PTSD means you're a survivor. You have survived the trauma, and you are now beyond the trauma, in a different part of your life, in a different time of your life, but the trauma is still affecting you. So complex PTSD is very hard to understand, but we're learning more and more and more about dealing with it, and this book is a gem. I highly recommend. There's a lot of questions where you fill out the questions and you answer. This itself can be your journal. As you write out your journaling in here, and you're answering the questions about things, about how you feel about things, and rating things a little bit more, kind of a lot, or really a lot. And there's a lot of little scales where you can start visually seeing, well, this isn't such a big deal, but this seems to be a really reoccurring big deal. And it helps you gauge where you're at on the map of pain and grief and loss and trauma, and where you can nudge yourself back into different areas by recognizing, I'm hovering in this area that's no good. It's no good. It's no way to spend life being all sad and full of remorse and other guilt or whatever your symptoms are. So this is my book idea for today, and I've really gone a long time on this video. The PTSD Workbook, Mary Beth Williams and Soili Poijula. And it's available. I bought mine on Amazon, so it's readily available. And it would be a great gift for people too. Great gift for someone that needs one. This is a great gift. And thank you for joining me. And I hope this has been helpful.